Hello, hi, once again. Welcome back to Whispers.Of.Why. It's always a pleasure having you guys. Thank you so much for those who've been interacting with the podcast, for those who've been liking, sharing, commenting. We thank you so much for the community that we're building, and we're always excited to have you around. So we are back again. Cyril, hi.
Hi, somebody reminded me that this thing is a wow show.
Oh yeah, because it's
Welcome to Wow.
We should actually start saying that. Welcome to Wow.
Yeah.
But that would be wild.
Whispers.Of.Why. Wow.
I actually have never thought of that weirdly.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back to Wow. So this is Whispers.Of.Why, a podcast where we get to ask questions that many people within the Christian faith have run away from, and we try to answer them honestly. But more than anything else, remember what Cyril and I said, that where we are unable to, we bring expert opinions. So today, we've been joined by experts. So as always, we're your hosts. My name is Calvin Nyabuti and
I'm Cyril Tumbo.
And today we've been joined by two lovely ladies. So do you want to introduce yourselves? Do I introduce you? Okay, we have Faithful. Faithful, you can say hi and tell our audience whatever you want them to know concerning you.
Hi everyone, my name is Faithful Shoni. I am glad to be here. I don't know about the expert part though.
No, at least for this conversation, there's one thing that's
very humble humility. Yeah.
Awesome. And next we've been joined by Gloria. Gloria, say hi to our people and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Gloria Ndegwa and I'm glad to be here. Not an expert though.
Why are you guys refusing this expert title?
Humility.
Amen.
Something we should learn.
Something we should really learn. Especially Cyril, guys. I'll talk to him. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And we are continuing with our conversation. So just for context, for those who have been following, we've done a 2-part series on the idea of gender equality and marriage. And we did it from a male perspective. And as we promised, we'd be exploring the conversation once again from a female perspective. And so I think in this case, your gender just already sets you apart as experts. And so we're just glad to be able to have this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Cyril, you want to catch us up on what we covered in our last 2 sessions?
Yes, so the last 2 sessions, I think the overriding idea was that equality of these sexes doesn't mean doesn't mean one gender assuming the roles of the other. It just means that we are distinct but beautiful and equal in our eyes and also before the eyes of the Lord. Mm-hmm. Yes. It's the same concept with the Godhead. There are 3 distinct persons, but co-equal, co-eternal.
Amen.
Yes.
And we actually saw how God, in his original design, wanted to use the idea of gender and the union of male and female as a description of the covenantal love that is shared within the Godhead.
Yes.
Amen. And so today we just want to pick up from where we left off, or rather we actually want to have the same conversation, but in a different lens. And so as we start, I want us to begin by framing this conversation. I want us to begin by asking the question of, from your point of view now as ladies, I think this for this particular set, we'll just be asking the questions so that we don't, maybe Cyril, I don't know if you can speak for ladies.
No. As you can see, I'm male.
Clearly not. And you identify
as male. Identify with the subject.
All right. And so I want to start with the question of why, from your point of view, have you experienced the tension of the genders and conversation, like the polarized conversations around gender equality? What does that look like from your point of view? And why do you think this is such a bone of contention in this day and age? Or has it been historically? And how is it to experience the tension from the female perspective? So maybe we can start with Faithful and then Gloria.
Okay, thanks. So from my point of view, my experience in looking at how different genders are viewed in society came mainly in schoolwork, where, as you're growing up, it was a badge of honor if you could do well, but it was a badge of extra honor if you could beat the boys.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Yes. So it was really I was really loaded for, being able to beat a boy in something. Yeah. You could be stellar, you could be the best student in something, but the fact that you beat boys,
is better than the fact that you got an A.
especially in subjects that boys are known to be better at, like mathematics. So that was really a place in which the whole gender conversation, the whole gender dynamic affected me growing up. And that definitely shapes your point of view as a girl. You grow up knowing that, if I can just go the extra mile and beat boys
men.
at this, then I'm doing well. Well. So I think that's a manifestation of how I grew up conceiving the whole gender conversation, and how it eventually molded how I view my life, how I view my successes, how I view things that I do in general. So that has been my experience so far. I don't know if I was.
No, yeah, that makes sense. And so the other question, as you build that up, is why then do you think the polarization is such a big deal right now? Why are these conversations coming up in this point in history?
I think the conversations have always been there, maybe muted, perhaps. Right now we live in a day and age where we have social media, which just tends to amplify every discussion that people might have been having in whispered conversations. So I think that's one aspect, the fact that the world is now a global village and everyone can have conversations and communicate whatever is pressing them.
Yeah.
So I think that's one aspect. Another aspect of why I think this is coming up right now, especially in my life, because now that's shaping how you grow up in your parents' house, and you're subject to their opinions, their perspectives on life. But I've reached a place where now I have to form my own opinions. I have to, I'm starting life, so to speak. I have been living so far, but
I always like that phrase. I'm starting life. Everything life starts at everything else was just a joke.
Guys, I'm not 30, but anyway.
Sorry, guys. Again, my apologies.
The point is,
it's not a bad thing.
No, you just because
of course you would know. Yeah, the point is, I'm starting to think about creating my own family, my own community, and I'm thinking about the principles that I want to bring up my family with. I'm now examining the things that I grew up with, trying to find out what's true in this and what's not true, what was informed by context, what is such that context has changed, and now this is not true for my situation. So I think that has also brought up these conversations, has brought me more into these rooms where these discussions are being held. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. It's nice to hear that from your point of view. Glory?
For me, I think the gender equality thing, I felt it growing up because we are two kids. I'm female and I have a brother.
Wow. Come on.
Yeah, so it's one boy, one girl. And the kitchen was for the lady.
Oh, wow.
Of course.
Yes,
Yeah, of
and,
course.
and her mother.
And then the men were...
Yes, in the sitting room. They're waiting for us to go to the kitchen and come back. And I think if you're brought up that way, when you get married, when I got married, you'll automatically go that route. You go because that's all you know.
Yeah.
Now, I think, as she said, with social media and we have access to how other people are living, then it's like your eyes are open. I don't have to do this thing. There are ladies who have never cooked in their lives.
Yeah.
Why am I cooking? Then now it becomes an issue because now you're changing because of the information you're consuming.
Oh, yeah.
Which might be right, might be wrong. So I think that's why it keeps on. It has come up right now because now we have access to how different people are doing things differently from what you've been brought up to think it's the norm. Yes.
I think I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
From the discussions, do you think, because it appears, from what you said and from what you said, it appears what men are doing is something superior. Like sort of her entire goal in primary school was to beat men. So meaning whatever the men are doing, it appears as if it's superior. So if you beat it, that's the standard. So do you think that's crude? Like it's contorted in a way that we've always been chasing what men are excelling in?
I think I can talk to that in the educational context, at least. When you look at our ancestors in the African setup, education was more mingled with life. You had things like apprenticeship. When you think about education in the old African setup, you don't think of schools. You think of people sitting by the feet of experts and learning. But if you think about education in the Western concept, then it is more structured. And I think for them, men had access to education earlier than women, such that I think they had a head start in especially that space, so that when women are coming, this is being held as as a standard because men have been here for longer. They've had access. They've been getting certificates, so that when women come and beat men, it is even the much more an achievement than if they beat other women. So I think at least in the educational concept, that might have been carried forward or from the Western world to our context, such that we just get that just have that perception that if you beat a man, then you're better. But I don't know about other contexts.
So perhaps what I'm getting from her is, if perhaps women had access to education very early, perhaps the standard would have been higher. Currently, the standard is beating men, but perhaps it would have been.
But then also, there's, and I foresee this coming up. The fact that the question of, is it that, and we'll explore these concepts obviously more as we go. The fact that, is it that women had access to education later, as though it's something they didn't initially want, or is it that society was set up in such a manner that the man was given precedence and women had to fight for their space within the educational sector? So what's the difference between these two things? Because if we just leave it at that, it will seem as though, oh yeah, no, everything was cheery, men were just going to school, and then one day women woke up and they were like, oh yeah, we also want to go to school, and then the men were like, okay, now come, but you have to catch up,
Yeah.
But in all honesty, if we're giving credence to what has happened historically, there have been systems that are structured fundamentally against the progression of women in certain spaces, in many spaces actually. And I want to actually throw this to Gloria. You mentioned something very interesting about how we are cultured growing up, and how oftentimes the norms, the social norms that we have known have become the general descriptions of how we live out life. In that particular sense then, how does this look like, talking about, like the educational sector and whatnot? Talking about just in the general historical sense, do you feel like, from a female point of view, these social norms at this point now, where you're interacting with a lot of contrarian information concerning how things could have been, were these norms naturally, do you feel like it's possible, or does it appear as though these norms were naturally structured by men to oppress women? Or was it the natural outcrop of the kind of relations that existed, that now as the world was globalizing, things now became still more patriarchy aligned, like male aligned? Was it malice, is the question. Was it malicious intent from the male point of view? Was it ignorance, malice disguised as ignorance? What do you think began the social structure that favored men over women in a fundamental sense?
From the African perspective, because I'm African. Yeah, I don't think our ancestors were trying to trample on women and their rights when they came up with this setup whereby the ladies take care of the home, they take care of the children, then the men go and look for something, then they bring back home, so that the lady actually makes the home.
Yeah.
That was, and it worked for them. Because everyone knew their roles, you knew your space, you knew what was expected of you.
Yeah.
But then now, if you bring in education, education is a big topic.
Yeah.
Education, because they structured a system. Then they said you're supposed to sit in class for this number of hours. At the end of it, you'll get a job. Now, ladies are not included.
Yeah.
And then this job brings money. Money brings power.
Yeah.
Then there's a gentleman somewhere who misuses this power to oppress the lady. Because in a perfect setup, it works. Because the gentleman will go and look for money. When it comes home, it is our money.
Yeah.
It should be our money.
Ideally.
Yes. It is our money. And then the lady takes care of the home and the children. These are our children. This is our home. So in a perfect setup, it works. But now every now and then you'll find someone who wants to misuse it or wants to take advantage of their position of power, in quotes, that the money will give you, and oppress the ladies. And when this happens, all other ladies will be up in arms. This is one of us. Why are you oppressing one of us? It can happen to you. Today it's me, tomorrow it's you. So traditionally, it was not from a place of malice. The education system, I think, has introduced something that works against us. The education system is not wrong. Please go to school and learn. There's nothing wrong with education. But I think the misinterpretation, because even then people are learning. Education was taking place from when kids were young. You'd walk around with your mom, you walk around with your dad, and education was taking place. But the system that has been created I think it's called the Prussian system.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a way it introduced some things that messed the whole thing up. Yeah.
Interesting. And Cyril, she's mentioned something about power dynamics. What have power dynamics looked like for you in your like now concerning women from a male point of view? I'm interested to hear that. It's a question that just popped up in my head. I mean, like growing up and experiencing life as a man. And the reason I'm asking this is because sometimes, we have social bias where, you know how when you've had privilege and then you actually don't know it's privilege. So for the longest time, you're just like, oh yeah, this is the norm. And then one day your eyes are opened and you're like, wait, what? Oh yeah, this is actually not the norm. Ever had that kind of woosa, like eureka moment where you just realized you have male privilege? Or has male privilege ever been a thing for you?
Okay, that's a very interesting and difficult question.
Risky question.
If you look at it, like, when you're growing up, ladies are treated as delicate. Okay, there are things you can't do to them. Okay, like for instance, when you're fighting as a man, you'll have to be delicate. And when fighting man to man, you don't care where you hit.
What kind of fighting are we talking about?
Yes.
Is it like I'm delicately beating her?
No, like when you're young, when in primary school, nitafunga na wewe.
Yeah.
Those things.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
I'll close with for our non-Swahili audience. Roughly translated, I'll close with you. Like.
I mean, it was a norm where at the end of any school term, you will have like an ego contest between male to see who is more
Stronger.
superior.
Yeah.
So that thing you will not do with women. Okay, if a woman dared to fight with you, you'll just assume her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is how we are brought up. Okay, and then the things like you can't cry, something like that. But somehow when and then you notice sometimes we as men there are some privileges, because if you look at, since we hold you delicately, so there are matters where I will not involve you because perhaps we think you are not intelligent enough to answer such things. When there are crises, there's a higher chance. Like if there's fire or if there's war, the first thing they just take kids and women out. But people were saying so that men could think properly. When women are around,
Where so delicacy has been interpreted to incompetence.
it will incompetence.
Weakness.
Yes.
Wow.
It's not
Okay, that's
weakness.
quite the stretch.
And
Yeah.
I know.
Guys, this is
Yeah.
me being shocked as a man. I'm like, we say that?
Yeah, I know. I mean, but you come to realize that sometimes we've taken ladies to be so delicate that we don't appreciate the brilliance they come with. Yes. So in all situations, you might not be like when you're in school, you're doing math, and it's a lady who excels in that subject. There's a higher chance you're not going to ask for consultation or something. You have to find
You
a
have to
fellow man.
figure it out or ask a man.
Ask a man so that you can beat her. That is the yes. So I think both of us have enjoyed privileges. Like if you look at if you grew up with sisters, and when you're going to Form 1, and when parents are buying shopping,
Yeah.
there's a high chance you're going to be given a remis and 500 shillings. But from the woman side of you,
Yeah.
the packaging, there's a lot of shopping. So there's and if you ask your parents, they'll tell you, the worst the worst you can do is get into drugs or something like that. The worst you can. But for them, they can bring a human, another human.
Oh.
Yeah. So for you, they
little
say,
friend.
even if we give 500, there's nothing worse you can do as much.
Yeah.
But for them, they are
They have
treated
to take
delicately.
care of.
Yes. Also, the privileges both genders enjoy, but I think because men are more exposed in terms of, like, if you look at the C-suits and all that, okay, partly because men take more risks. Yeah, but so it's we enjoy more powers. Because we take more risk, we enjoy more powers. And perhaps women, sometimes they might want to take more risk, but we don't allow them.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
And we'll get more into the idea of power dynamics, but I want to shift this conversation now to a more biblical centered idea. And I usually believe in the idea of first principles, the idea that when you're having conversations concerning something, it's important to establish paradigms of thinking that essentially guide the thought. And so the first question I want to ask is, what's the fundamental difference when it comes to approaching these conversations concerning gender from a purely humanistic point of view, and what shifts when we begin approaching it from a biblical point of view? Because if we know we need to, while there are things that humanists and biblical and Christians believe in, at least that are commutual, because first principles are different, the place where they'll end up ultimately will be different. So that as Christians, we're having this conversation as Christians. What do you think shifts when we begin approaching the conversations on gender equality, and eventually the conversations we'll have on marriage? What shifts when we begin having these conversations within the biblical narrative or within the biblical context?
I think for having the conversations from a biblical point of view, first of all, it shows us, at least for me, it sheds light on the intention of these differences, right? From a humanistic point of view, as you've noted it, number one, that's a very limited point of view, because as Christians, we believe that we can only see in a limited way. In the Bible, God tells us that his thoughts are way higher than ours, and his perspective, I must believe, must be higher than ours as well. So I believe that if you just approach it from a human point of view, you're already limited in the sense that there are things you cannot see, and therefore you cannot include them in your rational thought, processes, thinking, and as such, your conclusion will be different. So one thing that is fundamentally important to me when I think about these differences is the aspect that God is love. God himself, the Godhead himself operates in a system of love where they are all equal, but they complement each other, so to speak. And so when I think about God creating man and woman, from that point of view, then I think man and woman should complement each other. They should be working towards meeting the needs of others, of the other, and the other meeting the needs of this other person, and so to speak, so that it's such a cyclical economy. There's an author, she's called Ellen White, that she writes, and I'm going to paraphrase, I'm going to butcher it probably, but she writes that everything that was created in the world ministers to something else apart from the selfish heart of man, right? And I tend to believe that before the heart of man was selfish, even the heart of man ministered to something else. That's why we have verses like the whole creation groans, because who was placed in charge of creation? Man. And we've stopped taking care of what we were supposed to take care of, and as such they are suffering. So if creation itself that we were given as something to take care of is suffering, much more each other, right? Because we are supposed to minister to each other. And so I think approaching it from a biblical point of view, I see gender, man and woman, supposed having the possibility of complementing each other into a way that we come into a system that works well, because what this one does not do, the other one does, and so it creates perfect harmony. I don't know if that...
No, that makes sense entirely. So what you're saying, if I understand correctly, is that the thing about the biblical narrative is that it takes us back to original design.
Yeah.
The fact that within the biblical narrative, all things come from God, including gender itself, so that it must have had an initial purpose.
Yes.
And maybe that makes sense, because we live in a world where the entire idea of gender is being so fundamentally fought that it's becoming fluid, that you can choose your own gender, you can assign to yourself whatever works for you. And all this is because gender as a foundational principle out of the biblical context could actually sound like an illusion, because if you're just talking from a purely evolutionary biological point of view, it's not my fault that I didn't evolve as a woman, so I can now choose to become a woman. But if we're talking about it from a place of original design, where we believe in an intentional God who precedes all things, then he must have created things in their order and planned them for a specific reason. And what does this look like for you, Gloria, the idea of talking about it in the biblical sense?
I think God wanted us to understand something. You see, God is very complex. We really don't understand him. And if you look at Genesis, in the beginning, they're creating the world, and the Bible tells us that there are three, and the Bible also says in Deuteronomy, O Israel, your God is one God. And the same Bible, should be Genesis 2, says that man and woman become one flesh. So he's trying to teach us something. What is he teaching you? Because I'm married. We are not one, but we are one. It's not mathematical. There is a deeper meaning that he's trying to impart on us. He wants us to understand that when you two come together, you need to think as one. You need to move as one unit. And it's best okay, you can also understand it, but marriage depends that understanding of what it means to be one.
Yeah.
So that when I read the Bible and I see that God says there are three, but they are one, I'm able to understand because we are two, but we are one. We are one in purpose. We have the same mission. What I tell you should be what he tells you.
Yeah.
There should be no differences between what we say and what I say and what my husband would tell. Yeah.
Interesting, and I think it's beautiful to hear these points of view from someone actually who's married,
Yeah.
and seems to be really enjoying marriage.
And then theory.
We try.
Yeah, then now there's, but at least there's almost practice, and what do you used to call them? The exams that used to precede the main exam.
Pre-mock.
Pre-mock. Yes, this is like pre-mock exams. So
Yes.
and so that now I love the fact that what's coming out very clearly is that original design helps us to reframe these conversations better, so that as we look at the unity that was intended in Genesis chapter 1, then the diversity does not become a reason for contention.
Yes.
The diversity actually becomes a reason to, it becomes the unifying factor. The fact that God, in his original design, very beautifully made things distinctly, so that unity is not understood as a concept that is necessitated by uniformity. And maybe this is important also because the biblical narrative will eventually call us to unity with God, which, if we were equal in every sense with him, we'd assume that, okay, we are unified, but our unity with him cannot be because of uniformity.
Yes.
So that at least we learn that concept in its infancy. And Cyril, as we finish this, I think, initial conversation, introduce to us the idea of Genesis chapter 1 and the question of the image of God. I know you've done this already in our previous conversation, but now I want you to reframe it within this particular concept. I know you're usually very interested in the idea of the Imago Dei. So let me give you a few minutes to circumvolute on it.
My God, circum what? You just say that in a normal conversation.
Yeah.
Yes, so it's 1 verse 26. Let us make man in our image and our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish. Now, so there are many angles you can look at this, many angles. But if you look at the image of God, first it starts with letters. Make man in our image. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's plural when God speaks in plural. Okay? The Elohim, the same way we have cherubim. There's a cherub and cherubim. Elohim, the Elohim, the im is in plural. Now, so the image of God, if it doesn't mean like now the man aspect of it will just look exactly the way God is. Like God has fingers as we are, and he's, because it will be confusing. Is God man or woman? If that is the image, that means God is androgenic. He's neither male or female. He has both male and female organs. It will be very confusing.
Yeah.
If you look at it like that.
Yeah.
So it has to be something higher, something of greater principle.
Yeah.
Yes. So now he first speaks as a collective, okay, and then creates. He said, "Let him create man in our image, male and female." Okay. He speaks as a collective, and then creates man as a collective. Comes male and female, and so the man aspect of it, Adama, the word man, Adama there, is bipartite. It refers to male and female. And so, and since, if you look at the Godhead, the three person, God the Spirit, God the Father, God the Son, we are told God the Father has a form of sorts. If you look at Daniel chapter 7, you can be able to see him. You can describe him. Hair as wool. And God the Son, you can also describe him. He's male, like me and you. He was male like me and you.
There's neither a male nor female in heaven.
No, I'm saying when he was born.
When he was on earth.
Yes,
Okay,
he was male like me and
fair.
you. Okay,
Fair,
like you could describe him.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the Spirit, you just can't describe him. He appears as fire of tongues sometimes, appears as a dove. Okay, so he's indescribable in that very sense. And so it's these are three beings which are co-equal and co-eternal. but they are not similar. Okay, they are different but uniquely equal. And so when he creates male and female, he creates two distinct beings that are co-equal in function, not in function, co-equal in like they have the same mind. They can be able to discern things logically. They can be able to discern things spiritually, but biologically and functionally they are different. Okay, for instance, as a man you can't give birth, but women can. But yeah, so we are distinct but equal. Okay, so that's one aspect of image. The second aspect, you think the preceding phrase is let them have dominion.
Yeah.
The same way God rules, He's donating this function to this creation. So they have the uniqueness of God, at the same time they have the rulership of God. And from the very beginning, we're not being told that the man should rule or the woman should rule.
It says they should rule.
They should rule. The command is to both of them.
Yeah.
They should rule. Yeah. So in matter of speaking, I can just summarize it as that.
All right. And again, we've had this conversation before on what that means, and I'd love to just throw it back again to the ladies to reframe this now from a female point of view. The fact that, as Cyril has so eloquently mentioned, in Genesis chapter 1, when it says in verse 28, verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, and then male and female created he them. So in two parts it talks about their unity, and then in the third part it talks about their diversity. What do you think was original design then in this sense? Talk to us about what the distinctions looked like in the pre-fall idea, but what were also the unifying factors? What are the things that made, at least in God's mind, where He's beginning with their unity, that they created man, he, him, but then the distinction, male and female created he, them. Pre-Genesis chapter 3, what were the things that unified them? And then what are the things that gave them entire distinction? So that now we can describe original design a bit clearer. You want to go first, Gloria?
Okay. I think what unified them, first, they were both human. Remember, they've named animals, and then it's just them. They're the only humans on Earth at the time. So that they're both human. The similarity, another similarity is they could talk to God. You know, they're intelligent beings. They can have a relationship with God. Flowers do not. Fish do not. And that's a unifying factor. When you come before God, He doesn't see a male and a female. He sees a human being, a soul that He died to save. Yes. The differences now, the physical.
Yeah.
I don't know about the emotional part. I suspect.
At least one gender seems to be struggling emotionally, feeling.
It appears.
I suspect the emotional differences because I've seen them in my home.
Yeah.
But that may be attributed to our own personal differences. But I know we are emotionally different.
Very different.
And it works in our favor because you'll find where one is emotionally down. The other one.
What a politically correct way to put it, you know?
The other one will lift them up. So yes, I suspect, based on my own experience, but I've not done a study to say outrightly that women and men, because
but
of my
the
home.
data that's available to you so far,
so the data I have
seems to suggest
there is a difference emotionally. Yes.
That's very interesting. I have a very controversial question. Actually, two controversial questions that I want us to attempt to answer.
It says controversial questions. I have to clench my hands. I'm like, okay.
I want us to attempt to answer, but we might not answer them entirely, but just throwing the ideas out there. There's this connotation out there that Satan only approaches the best of the minds. He doesn't go for the yeah. I mean, he if you look at the musicians, he goes for the best.
Daniel and his friends.
Yes, he goes for the best. He doesn't go for just anyone. And so when he was in the garden, when using that very logic,
when he went to the woman,
he went to the best of the minds. Somebody who would have a rational discussion with the devil. But at the same time,
Wow. Now you see, that sounds so underhanded.
no, as in somebody who they
who
would
would have had a rational
intellectual
conversation with the devil.
intellectual conversation, okay? Somebody
Intellectual, that's not better.
somebody who they will reason with, something like that. I'm not like,
I feel like it's just getting worse.
Yeah, deeper and deeper.
So you see now what we're saying about emotional.
Yeah, differences.
so it's controversial. I'm just saying it's a controversial question. Yeah, as in, he went to the best of the batch. That is the normal idea. Like the devil goes for the best.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you look at Genesis chapter 2, okay, how do you think? Why would God not just create them simultaneously? Why would He prefer to create Adam first, and then Eve comes later? Now, as a toxic feminist will think, it's like it was always patriarchy from the very beginning. Yes, so how those two questions? How would you? I want to pick your thoughts on those, because from Nyabuti, I also come to a male perspective. Yes, especially the goes for the best brains. Goes for the best brains.
Clearly, it didn't come for me. But yeah, so yeah, maybe you could give us that a shot as you also give us the unifying and distinctive factors concerning gender. I don't think you were done.
No, his questions were.
His questions have thrown you off.
Yes.
No, she just prompted me when she was saying then
So it's my fault.
emotionally down.
Playing out well.
Abuti, emotionally down.
I feel like Cyril, you're adding to this data set.
Emotionally down.
Okay, so the first question is, he went for Eve,
The brilliant one.
but did he go for Eve or Eve came?
Interesting.
Eve went to the tree. Satan was confined to that tree. So it was just first come, first serve basis.
Yeah, actually, that's interesting.
Yes, because she approached him. She was hovering where she was not supposed to be.
She was curious.
Yeah, she was curious. Yeah, unfortunately for her.
Irreverent curiosity.
Irreverent curiosity. Actually, that's a simple way to. Yeah, then that
Yeah.
makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Makes so much sense.
I think before she gets to the second question, controversial question,
Yeah.
just while we are on that topic, there is also this connotation that Eve was the weaker one because she's the one who fell to the wiles of the devil. And, reading Spirit of Prophecy, we learn that Adam was not deceived. Adam just and also to partly answer your question on why Adam was created first and Eve second. You see, God did such a thorough work. When God and I don't know, I think we shared this idea of Adam needing to see his need for Eve. When he was created first and Eve came later, such that when Eve came to him and Eve had eaten the fruit, Adam actually thought of the possibility of living without Eve and said no, right? So it was like God was so informed of the needs of Adam. He met those needs so fully in Eve, such that, you'll answer the question, but by the time he was being faced with the possibility of being alone in the garden again, although he had God, he had everything, he had the whole expanse of nature without it being corrupted, he said no. We are not going back there. So what I wanted to actually talk about before I actually veered off into a different subject is the topic of Eve falling. And personally, I have encountered this belief that zile memes za tukienda mbinguni tukutane na Eve.
Tumemark. We've marked her.
Mniachie Eve.
Again, for an answer, Hilly audiences, that if we go to heaven and meet Eve.
When
we go to heaven. It's a matter of when, not if. When we go to heaven and we meet Eve, we've marked her. We need to sit her down and have a talk down.
Seriously.
Yeah.
No, seriously. Of all the fruits, those pawpaw, those oranges.
Guys, again, I have this hypothesis that the forbidden fruit might have been an avocado. That's why it tastes so terrible. But
Emotionally down.
wow! You see now you're weaponizing the phrases we're using in this conversation, Cyril? We'll go for therapy.
I'm just quoting. I'm just echoing.
We'll go for friendship therapy.
You guys are going through it. Anyway, as I was saying.
I like how you guys might be looking at us right now and you're just like, Oh yeah, no, it makes sense.
I wanted to speak to the concept of both Eve and Adam being equally thoroughly
Yeah.
equipped to actually face the devil. And I think Gloria talked about it when she said that both of them was created as intelligent beings. Back to your question
Yeah,
on
that
how they
was a
were,
brilliant-
right? Yeah. So I just wanted to make a case that Eve was also very equally equipped to meet the devil, but what she did is forsake community. You see, when they were, we read from Patriarchs and Prophet, which is a book written by Ellen White, and Ellen White says that Eve was not supposed to wander away from Adam. And when she did that, then she made herself susceptible to falling. And I think that statement is a statement for community in keeping us alive, in keeping our faith alive. We've been told of the illustration where you have, firewood keeping fire burning, and then if you remove one, then it will die out. So I think that was the case for Eve, because when you look again at the original fall, before we get to the fall of Eve, the person who fell was the one who was closest, to the Godhead. He was not the one who was, most disadvantaged, or the one who received the lesser light. It was the one who was more thoroughly equipped to stand. So that's what I wanted to throw into the conversation.
I think we are stronger together. When God creates Adam first and then Eve, maybe he'll tell us when we meet him why that, what he was thinking, because we don't know. We are just guessing. But there's the point of, if you read the book she was talking about, whereby the writer says that Adam recognizes his need for someone. And then God creates Eve, because Eve was supposed to fill that void that Adam felt, irrespective of the fact that there were so many other so many other creatures, animals, and there's God himself also. So when God allowed him to go through that, there's something that God wanted him to see, that this lady will fill a void in your life that will make you feel better, will make you a better person. It's for your own good. It's not, it's beneficial to you. So from a married perspective, we are better together. We were okay when you were alone. We were okay. We were fine. Yeah.
But like together.
Yes, you're better, because when this one is stronger, this one is, because we are different. Like we say, there are differences between the man and the woman. So because of those differences, when now you come together, you complement each other, and in the process, you come up with a very strong team. If you look at the Godhead, we have at the baptism, we have God God the Father, God the Holy Spirit, and God the Son. They all have distinct roles. And the three of them working together came up with this beautiful plan of salvation. And it's because of that we are seated here. There's hope for us. So even us as human beings, when we work together and agree from a married space, it's better for everyone. It's better for you. It's better for those around you. It's better for the children. Everyone benefits.
I like how she has beautifully put it. At first, it usually appears as if Adam needed Eve, but not the other way around. So you said we complement each other. You need us, we need you.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And I think, just to summarize what we've said so far, I like the ideas that are coming out from the text, that there were very similar characteristics and very distinct ones. So at similarity, and both of them resulted in what was the unity that God was trying to achieve. And I like that in very fundamental ways, the hidden things we notice are very similar. All of them had spiritual capacity. All of them had the capacity to communicate with God. God was not, as many usually imply, revealing himself to Adam, and then Adam reveals God to the woman. It was God revealing. In fact, the biblical narrative actually insists on the fact that Adam met God himself, Eve met God herself, and then they met together. So that each of them had individual spiritual capacities. And I love that each of them also, as you mentioned very clearly, had individual intellectual capacities that were, none of them was lesser than the other. So that there was no such thing as, and I mean, in history, this idea actually has been perpetuated in certain senses, where it seems as though the male brain was esteemed as superior. The Bible comes and crushes this immediately. And what's more beautiful about it is that when Moses is writing this, he's writing it at a time when patriarchal values are rife, when the entire system was male-centric. And he comes in and says, God's original design is that in very fundamental ways, the sexes were similar mentally, spiritually, and their capacity for social interaction. So that while we don't know, for example, the emotional thresholds, we know each of them had perfect emotional capacities. But then there were now distinctions, which we've outlined. The distinctions that will permit them to be of need to each other. The distinctions that, as we've mentioned, will permit them to, Adam to need Eve and Eve to need Adam. So that in that sense, then, it had to be that Eve has capacity that Adam doesn't, and Adam has capacity that Eve doesn't. So that the distinctions would necessitate each of them being in each other's lives. They'd complement each other. And I think that's a beautiful way to sum up this initial conversation on original design. So that I think with that in mind, I want us to bring this first conversation to a close. So we've spoken of original design, we've spoken of what God's original intention with gender was. And now in our second conversation, we'll be delving into the idea of marriage. We'll be focusing on the questions of how gender equality and all these roles coming together in the one institution that I think right now people are so afraid of. I think in Gen Z culture, we usually say Gen Zs are afraid of two things: hot tea and marriage. and hot marriage.
Porridge.
Oh, hot porridge.
Porridge, yes.
Sorry, hot porridge and
Stay guided.
yeah, probably now I'm just afraid of the one. But yeah, so that I think that beautifully sums up in 1 minute each of us. How will you? What will your parting shot be for someone who might not be able to listen, for example, to the next conversation or follow up? What will be your parting shot concerning how people should, up from this point going forward, perceive the idea of gender equality, and the idea of the equality of the sexes? Just a parting shot as to what their paradigm of thinking should be concerning this matter.
Okay, I think I'll go first for my lack of experience.
Lack of experience with gender.
Marriage.
Oh, no, we're getting into the marriage one in the next one. This one is just for at least things we've both had
everyone was.
experience.
Huh?
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I can say I'm sufficiently experienced here. So I think one thing that is my guiding thought is I do not go for equality. I go for harmony.
Harmony
Yes.
is better.
Yeah, I go for harmony when thinking about the genders because that's the original design of the creator, and that's how I see him operate. And that will rid me of a lot of, trouble. Like, I don't want to be lifting things. What a man can do, let a man do, And
You don't want to buy it, you're just a girl.
Yes, I'm just a girl. Let me do the girly things, So the girly things are also intellectually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but the point is seeking harmony rather than seeking equality has helped me in understanding these conversations about gender and how our roles come in. And when that is how I am approaching the conversation, then a lot of things make sense, and it gives me freedom to fully be myself. I don't think God created me to be a man. He created me to be a woman so that I can be fully a woman when I realize that I can safely fill in this space because the other space is not for me. Yeah.
Amen.
As she was saying, she wants to do girly things. I remembered yesterday when you got home, there was a big cockroach at the door. So I took my husband's slipper and put it on top. I didn't crush, I just placed it gently. Then I told my son, go tell your dad there's a cockroach near the door of the kitchen. So when I woke up in the morning, the cockroach was gone. Yeah, and I was so happy. I thank God.
What an absolute wow.
My point is, there are similarities. There are things we can do. There are things both of us can do. And there are things that are specific to specific genders.
Yeah.
In the things that we can both do, you help each other. I could have taken the cockroach out, but he helped me.
Yeah.
Yes. In the things that we can both do, let's help each other. But where there are distinct differences, let's respect and appreciate them. Because when we do that, everyone thrives in their own sphere. If someone is good at something because of his gender, let him do it. Or her gender, let her do it.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, you'll benefit from that. Yes.
Okay. Amen.
Everyone benefits, actually.
Everyone actually
Yes.
does.
Both the one who does it and the one who let you do what
Oh,
you're
yeah,
good at.
true.
Yes.
True. And that's a beautiful way to frame it. Cyril, you have parting shots for this conversation?
God is not a respecter of persons. We are all equal before Him. And so if God sees us equal before Himself, it means in reality, because He's the very creator of our being, we are equal. And so if I see a woman or if a woman sees me, we should be able to see each other as equal and as people who reflect God's image.
Amen. And so that does it for this first part of our conversation from the female perspective on the question of gender equality, and marriage. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, this is Whispers of Why on Dawn of Faith. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. We want to share all this content and information with as many people as possible so that we can reframe our understanding through the gospel. As always, if you have any questions, linked below is our email, info@dawnoffaithtv.com. And so reach out with your questions. You can also leave a comment across all our platforms. Follow us on all our platforms, Dawn of Faith TV, on every single platform. And remember, always join us for more of these conversations as we interact with the questions of the gospel and as we seek to find answers from the Lord. So God bless you so much, and see you in our next session.